Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to Wait, Are These Guys Friends? I am Mike, and I am here with Randy on what is our, third We've Been Off for a Month reboot this year.
We love our sabbaticals.
It's true. Just, we love the show, but you know what we love more? Not doing the show, apparently.
Yeah.
How have you
Look,
been?
it's what the listeners demand, so it's unfortunately, but
Unfortunately, you're right. We're like, we like you guys. We love what you've been doing with the show lately. We haven't been putting any out. I know we love what you've been
it's
doing
been
with the
great.
show
So
lately.
5 stars. So, but no, life's been good, just busy. I know it's in the same for you with work and then some other stuff too. Same here as
Yeah.
we get into the summer, the time for Memorial Day. Lots of things kind of getting in the way. School ends for me. The kids home more often, so it's just finding things to do. Bob Lacrosse rears his ugly head as he always does,
Fucking
and
Bob Lacrosse.
and we just keep going. It's a year-long
Focus on
sport
your
at this
auto
point.
dealership, not your lacrosse sports that
Right,
ruin.
exactly. Seriously. So, but it's never bad being busy, but always
Right.
great to get back to this.
No, agreed. I was gonna say I don't have much of a what we watched, and then I was about to say that and realized I do technically have one thing I can say.
Oh
I
yeah.
saw Weird Al in concert a week ago at time of recording.
Oh,
I saw him at the Venetian in Las Vegas on what was a trip for fun, not a work trip, which apparently I do those. So based
nice.
on normally whenever I talk about a city on here, it's like, oh, I was there for work. Oh, I saw a thing. Oh. No,
Mm-hmm.
I went and did a thing on my own. So no big
Nice.
deal. Some people got it. I was actually working in Indianapolis ahead of that, working on some of the NBA stuff. Were you invested in the NBA finals, or are we moving on? Do you have any
Just
dog in that fight?
as a me, I'm kind of an all-encompassing sports fan. So the fact that there was enough drama to go to a seventh game, and it seemed like the overwhelming favorite was the Thunder, and then the Pacers were this plucky team that just kept punching. I think in a text thread I called you a horror villain. You just couldn't kill them. They'd be down by 20 and they'd come back and they'd win somehow. And so it went down to a really kind of exciting back and forth. So I definitely tuned in to see what would happen. I think I was rooting for the Thunder, not rooting against the Pacers, but I was happy to see that the Thunder won. But yeah, and I wasn't living and dying by it. It wasn't like my Ohio State watches or something for football, but I was just very much watching as a casual fan, which is sometimes even more fun because you're just like, oh, great, let's see what happens. Hopefully there's good basketball.
Fair enough. I will say that I had never been to Indianapolis before this year. And
Great city.
because of the day job, which we always hint at and dance around, but it's not a secret, people can figure it out. I do TV stuff.
Yeah.
But I spent 4 weeks in Indianapolis this year after never being there my entire life.
Yeah.
And I had said something that is a complete poke and knock to you when I say it, but it's also genuinely something I said and meant. But I realize I get the double whammy of also being able to poke you with it.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
I have spent 4 weeks or so in Indianapolis, and those 4 weeks are better than any time I've spent in 40 years in Ohio ever. So I liked that city. That was a good city. There was a lot to do. There was a lot to see. I ate well.
Yeah.
I drank well. There was fun stuff in the outliers. When I got in those 4 weeks, obviously I was there for work, but I got 2 or 3 days of not working, just cumulatively. When you look at it, with a little time to explore, time to look around, I am pro Indianapolis as a city. I liked it. And of the Midwest, obviously I grew up in Michigan, so that's always going to be in my heart. But they climbed up that list. Fun little town.
It's great. It's a pretty big city that still has a smaller feel to it.
I was stunned. I was
Yeah.
ready to be blunt, ready to make Ohio-like jokes at the quality of the city I was encountering. And I was like, oh, they've done a lot. This is good. I'm in.
Yeah. It's also a really nice, like for a big city, cool walkable city. Like I know there's stuff on the outskirts you can drive to and things like that, or take transportation to. But if you're staying downtown, like I know you were working kind of near the arena, like it's so easy to walk around to a whole bunch of different stuff. Great restaurants, great stuff. Just and the people, man. They're so nice. It's just like Midwesterners. I mean, that's a real thing. I know Southern hospitality, but Midwestern niceness is a real thing, and they're happier there. That's the coolest thing about it. Oh, thanks for coming to our city. Like,
The Midwesterner in me knows, and you know, that I think that the real catch is we can have a mean, snarky streak, but we have that apologetic immediately after where we say it and then we feel bad about it.
That's not fair. We shouldn't have said that.
My favorite moment of that is I actually got that from like a mean dive bar bartender who was a dick and then immediately apologized for being a dick at the dive bar. It was like,
Here's a free drink.
I've been going place to place to place, and I found this bar that had some music and it was a little smaller, and I don't do carbonated, so if there's a cocktail thing, I was like, hey, do you have like a menu or anything? And I was like, hey, do you have like a menu? And he goes, and the guy looked at me just angry. He goes, we're a dive bar. And then he paused. He goes, but I could probably make you if you need to. I was like, okay, cool, thanks. I was like, oh, look, he tried. He didn't have it in him.
That's like as mean as Indianapolis gets. So
yeah, it was great. It was like, that's nice. Good for you. The last thing I'll say before I move on is you're right about the walkability. I went in hard on the Lime scooters. I am not a small man. I am 6'3". Sometimes people think 6'4". And I know a couple of people, like a couple of friends saw me in different areas cruising by. They're like, we saw you coming. Like, it's like you look like you're having a good time. It's like, I am. I'm just this big dude cruising down the fucking streets.
Zip around.
I'm sure the second I go ass over head on one of those, I'll feel different. But for the moment, I'm really loving them.
That's definitely a Midwestern thing too. I don't know do they have that in Detroit too? It's definitely in Cleveland from one of the times I've been there the last couple of years. Like the scooters are big time.
I don't know if they have them in Detroit, but also I don't think I want to leave 3 blocks past what's in Detroit. If you're
by the time you get going on a scooter, nope, turn right back around.
If I'm downtown in Detroit, I've got the casino and like the 3 parks, and I'm good. So yeah. But with that, unless there's anything else you want to knock around on, we'll move on to our main topic. And we got something a little fun, a little different, kind of coming out of, I think, some of the NBA Finals tournament concept is how I think this originally started. Is
the hockey just finished too, so that was the other part of it. Yep.
The goddamn hockey. But so we're gonna do a little bracket, a little bracketology. Is that copyrighted, that term?
If Lenardi comes in, we'll know. So
all right, cool. I wasn't sure if that was a copy. I genuinely wasn't sure if that was a copyrighted term or not. But doctor said I need a backiotomy. So we're gonna do 3 little brackets. And Randy came up with some really fun topics because I looked at him and I was like, "This is your idea. You run with it," because I got no idea. And if you're watching on the video version, this happens sometimes. I move my hand in the wrong direction, and my auto-tracking camera thinks, well, he's going that way, and I'm not. So now I'm just wildly off camera. Yet another version. For you audio listeners, the things that you miss are generally 90% mistakes. So, you're like, oh, do we need to watch the video version on YouTube? I was like, yeah, if you want to see me getting mildly frustrated. So sure, you go to town. But we've got 3 brackets. We're going to start with what for me was the hardest one, I think.
Okay.
Is HBO shows.
Okay.
And this one's the one where I need the most discussion. But what we're going to do is I'm going to lay out my 4, you're going to lay out your 4. We'll just quickly list them. We're going to randomly generate a bracket where these all go together. So if you want to hit me with your 4, Randy. Oh, go ahead.
Sure. And I think to add to this, I think if we said we had the same, then that
they get a bye.
Gets a bye, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And automatically is on to the semifinals. So.
Yep.
So good for them. So I'll hit my 4.
This
was hard. You're absolutely right. As I started to go through, I was like, uh-oh. And I have 3 that I think may be the same as you, and then 1 that I think is pretty much an outlier, which is fine. So, or no, actually maybe 2. We'll figure it out.
I'm thinking it was going to go the other way because I realized, double checking the list of famous HBO shows, how many of these I'm aware of but never watched.
Gotcha.
So like ones that I know are famously amazing and famously like some of the best TV ever made. And I watched the shitty ones that people don't want to talk about. So
I think we joked that I was going to get mad at you if you put Hung and John from Cincinnati on yours. So
I'm so glad you said that because I have a John from Cincinnati story.
Oh, segue.
Yes, I was saving for this. I worked local news, market 139 in Lansing, Michigan, from 2003 to 2008. And that was the time when John from Cincinnati came on in like 2007 or 2008. And there are 2 distinct memories I have of that. One is the less important memory is, do you remember back in the olden times, pre-internet, when you would do a travel, a big road trip or something, and you go to a hotel, they had a little booklet a little TV guide just for HBO in the hotels, not for everything else. It was a little square, like 8x8, tiny little square book that you could flip through that was only like what was on HBO that month.
Right.
Do you remember
I
that?
do remember that. Yes.
For some reason, I have such a clear picture. I have no idea what John from Cincinnati was about, by the way. Not one clue. All I know is it's about some surfer guy on the beach, and that all the artwork was like him floating off of the beach. And I was like, is it a religious thing? Is it a stoner thing? I don't know what it is.
No, the idea, and I never watched it, so I read a synopsis, is just that's John from Cincinnati as JC, is the return of Jesus Christ.
My God.
That's what it is.
Oh, for
that's
fuck's
what it
sake.
is.
Okay. So the little square 8x8 book in the hotel that I'll always remember was his 2 feet only, the framing of his feet about like a half inch off the beach.
And that's why he's walking on water.
Okay. And so now the other one is, I got to look up John from Cincinnati.
While you're looking that up, I got curious.
Please.
Markets 141 and 142, or you said you were 139. 140 is Lubbock, Texas, and 141 Topeka, Kansas. So take that. You've defeated them in local.
Okay,
news.
so John from Cincinnati is JC or whatever. Okay, so Austin Nichols is the lead actor who played John. This is where my 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon comes into play. Because the producer I worked with, a lovely woman named Casey, she was so good. I don't know if she's still in there or not, whatever. I hope she's doing well. She went to high school with him because he was born in Ann Arbor, Michigan. So this was like his big break because was it before or after this that he did Day After Tomorrow? It should
have been after, right?
I thought this was... you are correct.
Yeah.
You are no, John from Cincinnati was after. So he was in Day After Tomorrow before this.
Wow.
But I remember it was kind of that guy from Day After Tomorrow, which wasn't a great movie to begin with. I remember thinking, and I was like, I don't know who this guy is. But she was the biggest cheerleader for this show without ever seeing it before it debuted, because she knew this guy and was high school friends with him. So I think for about 6 months leading up to John from Cincinnati, I would go to work, and she was the producer for the 10 o'clock news. And all you would hear leading up for months was, well, John Austin's and John from Cincinnati. We got to be preparing for John Cincinnati. And I'm like, I'm never watching this show. I never want to watch this show. And then all I remember is we never heard about it again. And I thought he, frankly, vanished into the ether. He joined The Walking Dead on the years I was already not watching, apparently.
Oh, so he did say who he was?
He was Spencer Monroe, who is in the comics, and I think it's the same character, the kid of the original original president of Alexandria when they go to Bataan. But he was that's John from Cincinnati, is Spencer from The Walking Dead. So there's my weird 6 degrees of separation, where I was 1 degree away from the guy who was on John from Cincinnati, and I couldn't not hear about it. So
even more so why you didn't pick it. So
yes, exactly. I realized
I never saw it, but it seems to not be well received. So
there was a long rip there to show you why. But there's my biggest claim to fame. It's all I'll ever have.
So anyway. I will give you my 4 then. So I'm gonna go Game of Thrones, The Sopranos, The Wire, and Veep. Those are my 4.
Okay. Here's the thing. The only one that's getting a bye is The Sopranos.
Okay.
Because Game of Thrones almost made my list. I can't, based on what it was by the end. I just, there's other things I liked more as a whole.
Yeah, and I think that's more my ranking of it. That was what I struggled with that back and forth and said, well, ultimately, the amount of time that I so much look forward to it, thankfully, outweighed the final season, which was not great.
I have only recently started Veep, and I'm loving it. Every ounce of hype on it is true, and I didn't want to mention it in what we watched because I'm only like a season and a half in, and I don't want to do all of it. I can for this, obviously, but I didn't want to start, I want to watch more before.
Yeah.
But that being said, she's a terrible...
You won't be disappointed. It's so fun.
She is a terrible human being. Selena Meyer, Julia Louis-Dreyfus' Selena Meyer is just the worst human being. And it's great. And also, I love the fact that Buster from Arrested Development, what's his real name?
Oh,
He's the assistant in Veep.
Tony
Yeah.
Hale, right?
Yeah, Tony Hale. He's just the whole cast, top to bottom, so far is great. I'm
It's, I
loving
mean, did you
everything.
see the one time she won the Emmy for it and he came up with her and was helping her to like thank people? It was really,
No,
really
I
funny.
missed that.
Like
That's great.
it was a good Emmy speech. It just
I love that. And I'm simply throwing out. And then I've obviously everyone's heard of The Wire. Before Breaking Bad, it was the show everyone said you had to watch, and then Breaking Bad came out and stole that. Yeah.
it's incredible. So it's
I'm simply giving you. I want to talk more about the shows when we get to the voting here that we'll
okay,
have.
cool.
But
Then you
I'm
give me
simply
yours. Let's go.
right, and I'm simply telling you why I guess your top four is, I think, the top four most normal people would choose, who have seen all of them and knows
I,
them. Yeah.
if you're curious, I did have my two alternates. Just that I was
Well, let me throw out my list, and we'll see if
okay.
my
Yeah,
alternates hit your list.
yeah, sure.
So, The Sopranos is a buy, obviously.
Yep.
The Righteous Gemstones. The fact that we've spent so many, like, we've spent the first year and a half of this, we love The Righteous Gemstones. I love The
Yep.
Righteous Gemstones. I listen to the music. I've rewatched the show. I love that show. There's no way, maybe it's a recency bias, but I want it on my list. Flight of the Conchords, because it's like era-defining comedy for me that could only have existed on HBO. There's nowhere else that show could have thrived and survived.
Sure.
And then that's three because Sopranos is a buy. Here's where I need to get into discussion on my fourth, okay?
Okay.
This is the hardest one. The only one where I don't have a distinct fourth choice. First, the one that I was thinking maybe could have been in your honorable mentions, 6 Feet Under.
No, I watched it and was okay with it. It wasn't my favorite. So
Okay.
it was very well. I agreed it was done. It just well done. It just wasn't my favorite.
Game of Thrones was one of my honorables. Tenacious D, because
no, that didn't. I didn't even enter my thought, but that's a good one.
Their 3 seasons were all HBO. It's how they became a thing. It's another formative one. And then here's the one that I actually want to choose, but I feel like I'm breaking the rules by choosing it, even though I wouldn't be.
Yeah.
The Kids in the Hall only aired in America on HBO until after the show ended, which is by the time we started watching it in the mid-90s.
Comedy Central, right? Yeah.
On Comedy Central. It transitioned over to Comedy Central when we would have been watching it. But the original 5 years were an HBO production. And I'm like, that's my entire brain. We always talk, like, Kids in the Hall formed me. I was like, out of respect, does that get my fourth spot, even though I technically never watched it on HBO? That's my question.
I mean, it's still an HBO show. I think that's fine. So I don't have an issue with that.
Okay, like, and here's the thing. Up against some of the ones in here, especially like our buy pick, it ain't going far. But but if I needed a fourth spot, and I can't justify Game of Thrones for the reasons we said, and the only other one I was thinking, I'd asked you before we recorded, do miniseries count? And you're like, we'll talk on air. I love Chernobyl. It's 5 episodes.
Gotcha.
It's 5 episodes of the most perfect TV ever made, and I would include it, but I would say no.
Yeah, and I debated having the conversation of like True Detective's first season is so good, but the other 3 are not amazing. So it was kind of like it gets. But if we were gonna go like, and if it's an anthology and we're going one by one, like you said, that's almost kind of treating it like a miniseries. But that wasn't one of my ones. The other 2 that I had were Silicon Valley and Succession, because I love Silicon Valley. That was just like such a fun Mike Judge thing. Did you watch that at all, or?
No, that was actually on my list of. I have the caveat, and I was going to wait to say it. The caveat of shows I know I've never watched, but I was supposed to.
It's
Oz, Boardwalk Empire, The Wire, Deadwood, and Silicon Valley were my list of those shows. And
all very good choices, yeah. So it's and on the cutting room floor, but I think I was thinking Silicon Valley or Succession is the other one, and I don't know if you.
I gotta get Succession. Now add that to my list of I know. There's something about. I don't know what it is, and I've had access to HBO intermittently, HBO Max, whatever you want to call it, intermittently over the years. It takes something apparently to get me to really commit. I didn't watch The Sopranos when The Sopranos was on.
Right.
I watched The Sopranos during COVID, and it was amazing. And I've watched it twice since then. It's amazing. It's perfect TV, but I just couldn't get there. I don't know why. I feel like these HBO shows are so good, but they're so dense that if I'm doing this, I'm doing this, and I just don't always want to do this. But yeah, shall we generate the bracket?
Let's do it. Here we go.
All right. So first up, we obviously have The Sopranos with a bye. That's blank. Next, we're moving to The Wire versus Flight of the Conchords.
Oh boy.
And here's the thing. I know I've never seen The Wire, but I'm not going to sit here and not pretend like I know the deal, right? Like I know the deal.
Flight of the Conchords is great and unique, and like you said, could not be done anywhere else on HBO, and has not really been replicated to its extent of absurdist, but still hilarious. I think there's been many attempts at absurdist, but not. I mean, maybe Insecure, maybe kind of walks that. I don't know if you've ever seen that show, but it starts to get there. Some of the stuff on FX tries it, but I don't think anything achieves what Flight of the Conchords does. That being said, you talk about The Sopranos as perfect TV. The Wire is perfect TV dramatically as well, and just nobody ever saw anything like that.
So interesting thing about the random bracket generator, it didn't pair up me and you and me and you. It paired up two of yours and two of mine in the next bit. So I'm cool with that. It's not, again, it was randomly generated, so you don't know how this can go down. Okay. It's cool that we got this fun battle with The Sopranos getting a bye, obviously, but we have got Veep versus Game of Thrones, which that's a tough one because I recognize, I feel like tell me if I'm wrong, less people have seen Veep, but Veep was more creatively consistent throughout its run, which is about the same amount of years.
And candidly, that was my initial reaction. Like, I think Veep gets the edge because it was so good for so long and at the level that it was. It was perfect satire. I know we're saying perfect a lot for a lot of these shows, but like, I mean, these are some of the best shows of all time. I can't go in on that because
I haven't seen the whole thing. I'm going off reputation past season 2 at this point.
I don't think there's a better satire than Veep. Like it's one of the best in terms of politically, at least. There is no better political satire than Veep. It is so funny and biting and showing that how like idiotic, like people in certain positions of power, still, you know, they may be assumed that something is happening or they have some sort of redeeming quality, but none of them do. So it's just, but there's still humor in that. So I think that, I mean, Game of Thrones.
Here's what I'm going to throw out though.
Some of that,
I'm looking at the overall
filmmaking, TV making. Yeah.
Of the first 2 years so far, I will say, as much as I've enjoyed Veep, the first 2 seasons of Game of Thrones are some of the most amazing, astounding, gripping television I've ever seen. While I did enjoy the first 2 seasons of Veep, the first 4 years of Game of Thrones are the last water cooler TV I think we've ever had. We lost water cooler television after Game of Thrones. This was we've talked about this. I can't remember if it's on air or off air, but there's something happened where Game of Thrones was the show that was the cultural touchstone, but then ended so badly that we act like it never existed, except for it was the cultural touchstone. So I'm genuinely not. I don't have an answer. This is me talking it through.
But now you're talking it through. I guess that's a good point. Veep has its fun twists and turns, and there's some really fun narrative stuff you'll get into in the later seasons, just kind of around the elections and other thing like that. That you see, but you don't see, and you think it's going one way, and it kind of zigs. But there is no red wedding. There is no, you know, Ned Stark gets his head chopped off. Spoiler alert.
I think you're supposed to say spoiler alert first.
Oops. But you know, no one was safe in Game of Thrones, and that was part of the allure of getting into it. Is that you said you're not sure what's coming.
I think the reason it might tip me over the edge is the way you had just said that triggered something that is not an original thought, but it made me think this was the show. Game of Thrones was so popular, it made people who would never watch medieval night shit watch medieval night shit.
And I'm one of them. Like, it was one of those things where my wife had found out about it ahead of time and was like, I want to check this out and start watching it. And she was pretty into some of the Lord of the Rings and all that other stuff and was watching some of those ones. And so I was kind of like, I'm tapped out on that because I've watched all that and I enjoyed those 3 movies, but I don't know if I want to do anything else. And in spite of myself, after about an episode and a half where I'm watching it, not really watching it, sitting on the couch, like reading something, I'm engrossed. It was crazy how it brings you in. And like you said, just for people that if you told them, oh, it's this sort of medieval fantasy world, they'd be like, all right, I'm good. But like, no. There's a lot going on here. Like, that's worth checking out.
I think your story makes me want to go Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
The way that you describe your wife getting you to watch, I don't feel like, as great as Veep can be, it's
right.
not.
Veep's hook hits my sense of humor already, right? So
Yeah.
it wasn't like I very thoroughly enjoyed it because it hit that note perfectly. But I think as we go through it, my initial reaction, I've been flipped, and I would agree. I think Game of Thrones advances.
So our next one then comes down to, this is tough, really. Although I think I have a gut reaction, but let's talk it through.
Yep. Okay.
The Righteous Gemstones versus the Kids in the Hall.
Ooh.
And I mean, it's both top tier, but two different eras of top tier. So you have to separate what was the height of this versus the height of that, 25 years apart. You know, it's
my initial reaction here, and you're
please
free to disagree, is the Righteous Gemstones is the third iteration of a Danny McBride. What's the guy's name? Jody Hill.
Yeah, I know who you're talking
David
about.
Gordon Green. Right.
Yep.
It's their third thing, right? So you got Eastbound and Down, Vice Principals, and then Righteous Gemstones. Now, granted, all different thing, but I think Danny McBride was given the opportunity to sort of evolve through what he wanted to do in a storytelling standpoint, where the Kids in the Hall were kind of like figuring out as they went, and it was still that revolutionary, that brilliant. They took chances with those type of things. And I think I give it a slight edge because of that. Because of we may be stepping off a cliff here, but we don't care. We're just going to keep going. And Righteous Gemstones had the benefit of previous shows that helped kind of form what they wanted Righteous Gemstones to become. I don't think it's a detriment to it. It just is they had the benefit of that. Kids in the Hall didn't, and it was still that good.
I'll tell you, I thought you were going to talk me, because I was leaning Kids in the Hall, and I thought you were going to sway me over to Gemstones, and you've just swayed me more, because the other thing that I'm going with is,
I'm a big originator. If you come up with the original kind of thing, like I really like that.
And Gemstones is such an original concept.
Of course, yeah,
but I will also say that it did, 4 seasons? We just finished 4. And as much as I love the 4th, you could feel it kind of running out of steam. Some of the characters getting that Flandersization of Baby Billy. I love Baby Billy, but my God, the man's a caricature by the end. He's hilarious. He's amazing. I want to quote all his lines forever. But I really do feel like I could have gotten a 6 Kids in the Hall season in that era, and they were really only finding their voice and getting better. The fact that this group that got tapped out on their show and were near breaking up and angry at each other went from this show and gave us Brain Candy the next year just shows they were clicking, man. They were moving. If they'd done a 6th season, who knows what we could have done. And you're right. What I thought was going to be a long-spirited argument going Gemstones turned into a pretty quick discussion going Kids in the Hall, which is amazing, even more considering that was I'm not sure if I should even have this on the list option.
Yeah. Not to discount Righteous Gemstones. It's just like viewing it in that lens. Beautiful. That's how I would do it. Yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. And it's 5 creatives learning and growing and building and giving us just some of the best shit ever. So now, however, we get down to...
Good job, boys, but I'm sorry. This might be the end of the line.
However, that would mean that our first round battle, because we got to bye to The Sopranos, obviously.
Yep. We're into the semis, right?
And the way that things have generated in after I filled out has been, Sopranos versus Game of Thrones, which is like a final battle in the semis.
Right.
And that
happens sometimes when brackets come out.
And this is such a tough thing because both of them have kind of maligned finales. However, The Sopranos is only, I think, maligned for that final scene. And is a pretty fucking good otherwise.
Yeah.
And that final scene is only because they want you to discuss it.
Yeah.
Game of Thrones has 2 bad seasons going through. Man, it's interesting, right? Because I think Game of Thrones is better made TV because it built on the tips and tricks of big budget filmmaking and a decade plus of HBO having prestige drama TV that Sopranos helped to usher in. So, like, it's getting to reap the benefits of all these things that were coming before it that The Sopranos didn't have.
There's a lot of parallels, right? Like there's a lot of like, oh my God moments. There's a lot of this turns the whole power dynamic on its head. Like there's a lot of those things that are similar. And then I don't know. I still think all things considered, I go back to it was consistently better across all of its seasons for The Sopranos
Yeah.
versus Game of Thrones' dip. And I think that has to be accounted for. It just it's makes me think of our actor battles when we did back and forth on that, and we would have certain actors where we'd say this movie was amazing, but you have to account for the fact that they also did this dud in the same year. And I think this is sort of a similar idea, especially now that we're in the semifinals. Like it just you have to account for consistently great as opposed to just amazing highs, which The Sopranos had amazing highs also. So I think they get the slight edge because they had the amazing high, and then the slight drop off wasn't really anything else. And the Game of Thrones one was noticeable for the times that it did. It would jump back up, but its valleys were lower.
I quote, and I think, have you ever seen The Sopranos like YouTube or Reddit comment sections? They are such a different vibe than the Game of Thrones ones. Every fandom has their toxic fandoms, especially the male, like these are both very male-centric franchises, right? Like that kind of energy. Game of Thrones, I feel like, is an angrier crowd because their show ended badly. And so there's a split universe of like anti-pro, I like this, I don't like it. It's like a fractured community. The Sopranos commenters, meanwhile, are literally just the same people saying the same jokes for the last 20 years and loving every second of it. And as silly as it sounds, that informs how well that show has aged and held on. That you could just post some random video and be like, and then like if it didn't go well, somebody would just comment and be like, this video didn't have the makings of a varsity athlete. Like it's like, and meanwhile on Game of Thrones world, it's just infighting and civil war over how the last 2 seasons went. And I'm like, maybe that says something about how you should be looking at all of these things.
I think part of it too, there are funny, witty aspects to Game of Thrones, right? And I think it's, but by and large, it is a serious sort of action drama about, the power hungry trying to take control. That's still the same kind of dynamic in Sopranos, but it's really funny. I mean, there's a lot of really funny things in it that I think help cross it over and sometimes make it maybe a little more accessible. I mean, the amazing visual of Game of Thrones keeps you tied in, but I think consistently knowing that you're going to be laughing at something sort of silly or ridiculous that Tony says, or I mean, it just, or Paulie shit. I mean, anything Paulie says, there's a lot of really funny things that make it very comedic. And so I think that gives it an added layer that gives it a little bit of boost. Again, we're kind of splitting hairs here because it's 2 phenomenal shows, but I think that little boost helps it.
So you got to look at it 2 ways, right? There's 2 shows. There's Game of Thrones that is fantastical and does all these things, and there's Sopranos where there's a character who spent 20 years in the can and he won't let you forget about it. I spent 20 years, so Game of Thrones, that pig fuck, come in here and win this? 20 years!
Oh.
Sorry.
It's never not. It's never not fun. It's just,
I don't know if
like
you know
anything.
this. Did you know Phil spent 20 years in the can? He never mentions it. It's wild. So yeah. It's the first you've probably ever heard of it. Phil Leotardo spending 20 years in the can. Probably the first you've heard of it.
Was it 20? Okay, yeah.
Yeah. No, it's the original concept. But I guess the last I'd say is that I also just want to say, obviously, much like we're not talking about the Game of Thrones prequel, we are not talking Many Saints of Newark in this either, which was bad. That was a sadly bad movie. These shows are living on their own. We are
unfortunate because the casting was fun. Like visually, the casting looked good. Obviously, one of them was Gandolfini's son, but like the guy that played Paulie, I thought was a good young Paulie.
I think the casting was good, but the timeline was fucked. He didn't actually pay attention to his own timeline casting or notes of what things that were said in the show. There were people who were contemporaries of people who shouldn't have been contemporaries of.
Yeah.
They all looked the way they should have looked, and it was really good. But that person shouldn't have been with that person, and this person should have been slightly younger, and this person person should have been slightly older. Many Saints of Newark was a very missed opportunity coming off a perfect round of TV, which let's move on. Are we calling it Sopranos? Sounds like we're calling it Sopranos.
I think we are.
Okay.
Yeah. On to the finals.
Listen, here's the problem. I've never watched The Wire.
Okay.
And it's Kids in the Hall versus The Wire. I love Kids in the Hall, but I guess if we're talking best TV ever made, I'd be willing to give it to you and just say, you can explain to me why The Wire should advance here, and I'll move on.
So, I mean, The Wire is based in, a former kind of almost police consultant that's writing most of it. And it showcases this underworld of the Baltimore like drug trade and showing how trying to get to the top of that drug trade is sort of paralleling with the cops that are trying to find it. But how can the cops get in through there without, because they are bound by certain restrictions, just laws and police procedurals that the drug people aren't. So it's just, how can they outsmart them by trying to find ways? And a lot of it is ending up using, that's why it's called The Wire. They had a lot of wiretaps and other things like that. And how can some of the undercovers maneuver in through this whole crime family to figure out what's going on? But how, even within the crime family, who has the bat of someone else? How can they maneuver in? And then they bring in the Baltimore the Baltimore mayor as well. And so it just becomes this whole thing on how's the mayor working with the cops, but then there's crooked elements within the local government that is sort of working on the drug side too. So it just all weaves together in this sort of incredible story that we hadn't seen that kind of access into this sort of underworld. And I think that's what made it so amazing. The way it's shot is it feels like you just took a camera to that block in Baltimore and you're inside. It's very sort of in your face and has these performances across the board of just everyone seeming so genuine. You never really get the view that you're watching a TV show. You just feel like you're watching a slice of time that's going on in Baltimore politics, government, police, all these different things.
Interesting. So it's tough to come in because I do want to go on that I had a feeling this is what was going to happen, even having not watched The Wire. And I want you to know that if you Google what's better, The Sopranos or The Wire, you're going to get articles going back at least a decade having this argument, having this debate. And honest to God, it was only when Breaking Bad...
Well, and they were on concurrently too, right? So
I think they overlapped a couple of years at the end,
yeah.
Right? Not that. It was only that really what stopped it was Breaking Bad showed up and it went, both of you sit down. And then, I'm going to take my time.
Well, it kind of took both. That's why it took the Sopranos dynamic and the Wire dynamic.
Right. And that's the thing is, as much as I love the Sopranos, having not seen the Wire, I love Breaking Bad so much. I love Breaking Bad more than I love the Sopranos.
It moved the territory too, right? Yeah. Now you're in the Southwest of the United States because both of these take place in the Northeast of the United States, the Sopranos and the Wire.
So my point being, though, is if you look at Reddit 7 years ago, Sopranos or the Wire, Vulture has from 2012 a massive article, the greatest TV drama. They did a similar thing. The finals was The Wire versus The Sopranos. You're looking at what's up?
No, I'm just saying.
Okay.
We've done well, I guess, with our
yes, exactly. There's a bunch of forums, the age-old debate. New York Times, what should I watch first? Wire, Sopranos, Game Facts, all these things, and there's a lot of what I'm seeing after cruising a lot of forums and looking at a lot of things. There's a lot of people going, both are good. It does slightly come down to taste, but there has been a lot, and you tell me if this is accurate, a lot of people who are actually saying, watch The Wire first, not because it's better, but because it's slower. Yeah. And if you watch Sopranos first, you might go to Wire and feel disappointed based on the pace.
And I think that was going to be my take on it, is that you can enjoy The Wire for the incredible television making that it is. But you can enjoy The Sopranos in a couple different ways, right? You can enjoy it for the great kind of narrative structure that's going on. But again, we get back to the comedy. There's some funny parts. It's a little bit more of an outlet where there are a few jokes here and there within The Wire, but it is very much, you're locked in for this very heavy, dramatic 5 seasons. Now, it's still engrossing and engaging because there are stakes to a lot of different things. But I think The Sopranos gives you that reprieve from time to time where other things are going on that kind of satiate other other interests, whether it's someone having an affair or something else. There's a lot of different dynamics narratively that seem to be explored, whereas The Wire sticks to this very it feels like real life. That is the I think it's one kind of shining star. It's thing that it always hangs its hat on. So I would, and that was my original thought when you told me the finals, or when we hear that, is that The Sopranos barely wins, but because of that. And if you're offered to watch Sopranos first, I think that gives it's one, right?
I also guess maybe I would go, aside from the fact that maybe we take into the fact that I haven't seen The Wire, is because, again, I came to Sopranos during COVID, and I went to Sopranos. Like, that could be a vote in its favor, is that after all this time, having never watched either show, I had a choice. I had all the time in the world to finally watch either show, and I went with The Sopranos. And so The Sopranos wins. Best HBO show on this podcast that hasn't done an episode of the month and has the most
Boom,
to win.
Bada bang.
We did it. Oh, I see what you did there. Go us. Now, let's move on to our next bracket, shall we?
Let's do it.
This one's going to be the pop punk bracket. And I had a lot of questions on narrowing down and genre and this and that. And now I say pop punk, but after what I poked you on, we are going 90s, 2000s to specifically narrow it to kind of that decade where we were maybe junior high, high school, early college, right?
I think my thought process here. So originally when I was like kind of toying with this whole idea of us pulling all these together, I was like, oh, let's just do music. And I'm like, whoa, that's way too broad. So let me just think of some sort of subgenre.
Also, I don't like doing music episodes on this show because I can't play the music. I don't like doing music topics as much as, well, let me rephrase that. I like doing music topics, but I don't like doing music topics.
We don't get like 10 seconds or whatever? There's no...
It can be tough, and it can be muted, and it's a whole thing. I hate doing music topics on here because it is such a fine line.
This will be a fun...
No, we're going to do it. We're going to have a good talk. But I mean, it's like, I feel like this is the definition of me talking at you when you could just go listen to it. You know what I mean? It's all about how we frame it. We can do a review like, hey, you should go listen to this. But if we're like, here's what we mean, I can't play you a clip. You know what I mean? It's a tough thing.
So the thought process for pop punk here was that for the majority of pop punk music, it is come into and enjoyed initially by kids that are in their teens, early to mid-teens. And then that's when it's first discovered. So you and I being of that age in the mid to late 90s, that's kind of how I was saying, okay, let's do late 90s, early 2000s. That was my thought process on getting those. So I went first last time. You want to go first this time?
Sure. My four are, I mean, what has to be a buy, right? Tell me if it's not, I guess. Blink-182 immediately.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Alkaline Trio, Motion City Soundtrack, and The Offspring.
Interesting. Okay.
What do you got?
So I've got Blink-182, Newfound Glory.
They almost made mine. They were right on the cusp.
I've got Green Day and Real Big Fish.
Oh, okay, now hang on. Green Day doesn't count, does it? Because I would have put Green Day on instead of The Offspring easily. I didn't think Green Day counted in this, both in era and possibly genre.
I mean, they started in the
I guess I was
early
thinking
90s.
of them as more alternative,
Okay.
and not and no,
you know what?
talk it through, please.
No, I mean, if we want to, I just thought they always had that kind of 3-chord sound to their thing so I didn't listen. It is a big genre that people kind of slip in and out of. So I mean, I have alternates if you want something else there. So
now let's talk it through for a second, because I love Green Day. They're amazing. I've seen them in concert several times. I love them. I adore them.
Yep.
I guess they just don't sound like all these other bands to me. They don't feel that niche or that style or that, like, they're I guess I just didn't see it scratching that same itch. But talk me through why I'm wrong.
I mean, and if you're thinking more of like the Boulevard of Broken Dreams era, I would agree with that. But
I'm thinking, Basket Case and all those. I don't think of that, and I don't think of that.
You don't view that as punk?
I don't view it. Doesn't sound like Blink-182, Newfound Glory, Alkaline Trio, Motion City Soundtrack. That doesn't. It doesn't. I thought about them, and I was like, well, that's not the same thing. Because maybe that's why they're also the most legendary and best in that regard, because they don't fall into the mix with me. And I thought, well, no, that's not, I'm barking up the wrong tree. So I took them out.
Oh, I mean, again, if you would like to remove them, I just always viewed them as. So I don't really have a specific reason other than when I think of pop punk, I think of somewhat shorter driving songs, three chords, and driving lyrics kind of that are sometimes call and response, like that. That's how I view pop punk. And that may be different than other people's interpretation of it. And so I think that there's enough of that in Green Day's catalog.
Here's where I think I'm getting held up. They could be pop punk, but I think, and I'm trying to hammer home the words so I get it right. I don't think of them as pop punk. I think of them as punk rock.
Okay.
Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense.
And I think and as they came into the public kind of awareness, they were more that than pop punk. So, all right, you know what? You've sold me. We'll eliminate them based on that. More in one than the other. How about that?
And I say that going that in the bands that we had all listed, Green Day should win. Out of all of those bands, Green Day should win. They are the best. They are the every aspect of them. But the problem is I don't feel like them as pop. I feel like them as punk rock. And that's me. Again, thank you for going with it. I worry I'm poking in the wrong direction. Do you have a replacement for them then?
I do. So I'm gonna pick Goldfinger then.
Okay. See, and that to me tracks. That's. Can you hit yours again? I started talking and where I missed one.
Of course, no problem. I have Blink-182, New Found Glory, Goldfinger, and Real Big Fish.
Real Big Fish. I love Real Big Fish. It was a tough call to. We can get into it.
That's another one where you can ska is sort of a subset of pop. So I was okay with it. Like they've been labeled kind of everything. So
once again, it gave us a unique smattering of random generations.
Okay.
But we have Blink-182 as our bye, right? That was our only mashup?
Correct.
Or was there another one in there? Okay.
Nope, just them.
All right. So the first matchup it gave us is Real Big Fish and Goldfinger, which to me is instantly Real Big Fish.
What's funny is they toured together like multiple times. So, it's Goldfinger was my fourth one just because I enjoyed a whole bunch of their stuff. But it is a kind of specific sound. I mean, Real Big Fish is a very specific sound, but a marketed and noted, and everyone knows that stuff. And they have so much fun with their stuff. I think Real Big Fish wins there. So,
if nothing else, Cheer Up is in my top 10 albums of all time. Like, it's weird how I don't want to put them in my list for overall bands because there are other bands who I like more of their songs, more of their discography taken as a whole. But as a single album where I'm not going to listen to the next one, the previous, whatever, Cheer Up is perfect album.
I would say Real Big Fish has kind of a hard rock equal, or not equal, but like the equivalent of that would be like AC/DC, right? So you can AC/DC has a lot of songs that sound sort of similar. But if you like that, oh boy, do you like AC/DC. And I think Real Big Fish is a very similar vein where it's just like they have a kind of music and kind of songs that they play. And they vary a little bit, but it sticks to kind of the thing with the horns and the driving guitars and the guy with the little song the voice that was more like this, and and it's but it all works, and it's all. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen Real Big Fish live, but they're a blast live. They're so much fun live, and so it really really works. So I think, and that's why they're popular because it's something that really really works and it's really really fun.
Next mashup, and this is going to be the first true battle, I think, is Alkaline Trio versus New Found Glory.
I knew this was going to happen.
Yeah, because I'm instantly Alkaline Trio, and I have a feeling you're instantly New Found Glory.
Yeah.
Because let's dial back. We'll go to the next one. We'll argue this one through last. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Motion City Soundtrack versus The Offspring.
Oh, both of yours. Interesting.
Well, that happened with your TV one.
That's true.
That's true.
Yeah. Motion City Soundtrack is an interesting one. A very underrated band. A lot of really just good listen. Nice. I like their stuff more than I realized. I think when you brought them up, I was just like, oh yeah, I forgot about them. That being said, I think The Offspring's longevity and kind of they probably have more big name stuff that you can really say I like all this stuff. That's my initial reaction to that.
My counterpoint is that I think Offspring has that for us. Motion City Soundtrack is great, but I think they have lots of hits for the generation about 10 years after us.
Mm.
And to the point where they did a retirement tour and came out of retirement, did another tour, and have been cleaning up. So
Okay.
like they've been doing well. When you look at what's the album? It's one of the best. Is it I Am the Movie? That album? Just that album came out in 2003. And if we're looking at if the Offspring's height was the late 90s, mid 90s, right? 96, 97, 98.
Yep.
You got to look at 2003, 2004, 2005 as Motion City Soundtrack. That seems like a small gap in years, but think about the formative years when you're listening to music. What a gap in time that is. I think we're hitting the same style, same longevity for a different group of people. I just happen to like both bands.
So, and I think this also comes back to the sort of splitting hairs thing where we should knock Offspring, in my opinion, for crap like Pretty Fly for a White Guy and was the original Prankster, is that the other one? Like that aren't great songs. It might be catchy, but are just kind of sort of felt like a poppy cash grab that didn't fit as much with all their other stuff, in my opinion. So, and maybe they're just having fun with it because they do get. I mean, I think pop punk is very much them, like with a lot of their stuff, and I think they are much better when they stick to that type of stuff. But so I think they get a point deducted because of a couple of those songs, and I think Motion City Soundtrack is more consistent with their sound.
The question is how many.
You can disagree
points,
with me. So
no. The question is how many points do you deduct for doing what I'm going to call, and we'll refer to in the future moving forward if we do this. How many points do you deduct for pulling a Rod Stewart, where you were amazing, where you put out great music, where you put out music that was just so soulful and good in your genre, and then you just went, I'm done with that. and just went hard the other direction, and you
go make a lot of money, yeah,
right. And you sold albums, and you just were like getting worse as it went on. So that's the question: where do you judge? Where your original stuff was so here, and then you made even more money later, but your stuff was like, I'm a little embarrassed about this. How much do you deduct in that genre? Because you're right. Offspring has way more name value, way more hits than Motion City Soundtrack, but I really like them, and that's why they made that. That's why they made the list.
Yeah, and I'm willing to give them. I probably call it an upset because of the consistency. I think that's what, if we're sticking to this is the pop punk, battle here, right? Like they stick more to the sound of that than the Offspring. Some of Offspring's popularity, not all of it. A large percentage comes from their pop punk music, but some of it comes from their poppier music. So,
right, and to your point about who was more popular, you're obviously right about the Offspring, because I just went to Motion City Soundtrack's wiki, and maybe this just says where I was at and the people I was with, that I even know Motion City Soundtrack well enough to be like, oh man, they're great. Maybe I'm in the underground on that, because I went to their wiki, and Everything Is All Right, which is like, to me, their biggest hit, right? Everything is all... Yeah, there's the most singing you're going to get on this one. That song came out in, what year was that? 2004 or 5?
Yeah, one of those two, yeah.
2005.
Maybe 5?
Yeah. Yes, because that's on Commit This to Memory, which is a great album as well. That song went gold in 2017. So maybe I'm barking up the wrong tree on my influences. So
I'm following it.
I was going to say, does that generate you to put you back to the Offspring winning? Who am I?
I mean, the poppin' is based in popularity, right? Like that's what we're.
You make the call, Randy, and I will take your judgment. You make the call right now. I will give you this.
I think, all things considered, we are going with biggest overall. I think I got to swing back to Offspring. I'm pulling. I have another left turn, but
no, it's all right. I'm giving you this. It's okay.
Yep.
But we are gonna have to have it out now, an Alkaline Trio versus Newfound Glory.
Okay. Um, give me your take then. So like the reason that you would take one over the other, the Alkaline Trio over Newfound Glory.
Alkaline Trio is just they're more punk to me than the pop. They are more. Maybe I should disqualify because maybe they are cruising into that punk rock more than the pop punk. Now that I talk it out loud, but they're more punk to me. They're darker and harder, but then so catchy. That's where it gets you. Just every little bop. It can be a bop about slitting your fucking wrists, and it's just such a bop. You're singing along with it, and you don't care, and it gets you in. That being said, I looked at Alkaline Trio's genre on Wikipedia, and I looked at Green Day's genre on Wikipedia, and Green Day did list punk rock first, and Alkaline Trio does list pop punk first. So just to dial into my concerns
yeah, I mean,
there.
just because you're still a little more hardcore doesn't mean that
Yes.
you're, from your sound is not pop punk. I would identify Alkaline Trio as pop punk. Yeah.
I would too. I just worried that maybe I was a hypocrite for disqualifying Green Day.
Oh.
But the basics of the internet does list it in line with what I was
I think
thinking.
it's a timing thing too. It's like when like pop punk hadn't really been identified as much until that mid 90s, and so Green Day had already started, and so their sound was a little bit more.
I guess my thought is I feel like, and you, maybe I'm wrong here, I kept hearing about Alkaline Trio and I kept seeing people talk about Alkaline Trio's new music. I didn't hear them keep talking about Newfound Glory's new music. I still just hear about the stuff that was released in high school. And people talk about the stuff that was released in high school. Meanwhile, I know that I'm looking it up. Newfound Glory put out an album in 2023, and Alkaline Trio put out an album last year. And this is what I'm going to look up real quick: is how did each of those albums do?
Yeah.
To see how. Not that doesn't mean that we can't have our personal.
Well, and I would look at numbers too. Like, what number of album is that? Newfound Glory's put out a bunch of albums, so I'm not sure if that's
fair enough. Let me look up. I will say that
I think that's like their 12th album or something like that, and I don't know what number Alkaline Trio is on. So just in terms of diminishing returns, that happens sometimes.
10th album in 2024, and admittedly, there was a gap between 2018.
Alkaline Trio has 10.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay.
Alkaline Trio has 10, and admittedly, there was a gap because 2018 was Is This Thing Cursed, which is just gabagoo, such a good album. But then they didn't put any more out for 6 years because Matt Skiba was in fucking Blink-182 touring.
Yep.
And then when they did that, they got another album out, and it was a good album. Alkaline Trio has only, in my view, put out maybe 2, but one really mid album, and that was Agony and Irony in 2008. And I was just like, ugh, Christ.
Yeah.
Good. But Newfound Glory, dialing over, let's look at the discography. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
You got to be careful because the From the Screen to Your Stereos are I guess count as albums, but
ignoring compilation, ignoring live, and ignoring cover albums as well. I'm talking original material.
Yeah,
they have
sure.
They have 12 albums.
Okay, hey, I was
so
right.
That's comparable. Here's the catch, right? Their 12th album did not chart on any charts.
Yep.
Alkaline Trio's 10th album charted 22nd on the top alternative, 188 on the Billboard 200, and 33 on the independent albums.
It is definitely a downward run for Newfound Glory. I will argue, you can argue that, and I would probably agree. I give them a little more credit on the front end just because they opened the door for a lot of other pop punk bands coming through. I think that was part of it. A lot of them, All Time Low is named after a Newfound Glory lyric, like, which is not a immensely successful pop punk band, but enough that people know, like, things like that.
I really appreciate them holding the door open for these better bands. That's really good. That's cool of them. That being said, so let me look up. Now I just want to know, where are we? Keep going. Feel free to keep talking. I'm looking stuff up. Or we can pause for a moment while I look up some things.
I just think, and I would almost argue at their peak, they were better than Alkaline Trio's peak. I think within that, it's probably self-titled, Sticks and Stones, and Catalyst.
Sticks and Stones is great. I will not deny that. Sticks and Stones
I think
is
that
fantastic.
3-album run of those 3 is better than Alkaline Trio's 3 best album run.
The self-titled is great. Sticks and Stones, self-titled. I don't know what's on Nothing Gold Can Stay.
That's like the first one, right? It's like
Yeah,
hit
I
or
don't know.
miss, like,
No, that
and
is hit or
yeah.
miss. So the next two are the ones I really know. Because I came in when they were big, so I
You
know.
don't know Catalyst? That's like All Downhill from Here and
No, that was
Forget
the
My
fourth
Name.
album. That's what I'm saying. I don't know Nothing Gold Can
Oh,
Stay. I
gotcha.
know Newfound Glory, self-titled,
Yep.
Sticks and Stones, and Catalyst.
Yep.
And maybe it's from the diversion I took. I don't know any after that, and I know all the ones after that for Alkaline
Yeah.
Trio. We may just be in a you like this, I like this, and I don't know how to
Yeah.
find the middle for us. So what are you thinking? How do we end this? Because I clearly like my thing and you clearly like your thing. And I can see the benefits to each answer. The problem is that I can see the benefits to each answer, but I can't pick an answer from them.
I think, I mean, and this requires me to take a step back on mine, which is what it is. But I think if all things the same, we've been advancing based on consistency. And I think Alkaline Trio has that a step above Newfound Glory, even though I think Newfound Glory's peak was better than Alkaline Trio. So I think if I'm going to be fair with the way we've been judging these and moving them on, then I think Alkaline Trio slightly advances because of that logic.
And I would agree with that, and I appreciate that. And I would say not just consistency, growth, because if Alkaline Trio is still charting as of last year, and Newfound Glory isn't, that's a hell of a thing. That's not just consistency. There's drop off for growth.
We're 10 years from the last like charting Newfound Glory album, so that's fair. Okay.
All right. Well, I'm glad we got through this, and I'm glad that this didn't end in bloodshed. Even though I was an Alkaline Trio fan, it very well could have, and people would have loved the lyrics about it.
I mean, who do they have next?
So, oh boy, what a wild Final Four this is. Real Big Fish versus Alkaline Trio. So I just take the same arguments I just had, even though I think I like Cheer Up. I will listen to a bunch of Alkaline Trio albums right now, but Cheer Up's a perfect album. Like I said, I don't know what to do there. But I'm curious where you fall on this.
I just think that Real Big Fish right now is still what Real Big Fish was 20 years ago. If you see them in concert, you hear them playing, you know exactly what you're getting. So if you argue that you really like that, I think that's the consistency. I mean, does Alkaline Trio, you said Alkaline Trio has exhibited growth, right?
Oh, I saw them in concert last year. It's fucking banger of a show. It's so good.
I don't know. I think the popularity has to come into play here too. Like, I understand the Newfound Glory thing was a little more niche. Like, I'm a devoted fan of them, so I was more biased in that regard. But I think Real Big Fish, by and large, has gotten more mainstream love than Alkaline Trio.
Oh, I would buy that.
I think that needs to maybe be counted. I think we did that with Offspring, right? Or no, we went back to Wishes. No, we did. We picked Offspring,
went with Offspring for that reason. So I'm curious, can we look up tour ticket sales 2023? Like, why can't I just have direct financial info of all the people and things that I want, Randy? Is that a violation of your privacy? Give me your social security number. Look up. Well, okay, so maybe Real Big Fish should be winning simply based on the fact that when I Googled ticket sales tour Alkaline Trio versus ticket sales tour Real Big Fish did not give me a result that Alkaline Trio gave me, which was how much does it cost to book Alkaline Trio and like a booking fee and website. So maybe it's not cheap. Don't get me wrong, it's not cheap, but there's
but the fact that you can.
yeah. So maybe that says something. Verse. Let me see because I don't think Real Big Fish came up in this list. That's so funny. What is this? Maybe it's just the way
Who else is on that list? Huh?
Well, I don't know if it's Celebrity Talent International, the leading celebrity booking agency for hiring corporate entertainment and speakers, has Real Big Fish, but it has a lot of big names. Kevin Hart's on here. This can't. Is this legit or is this a bit? Okay, let us help you select the type of event you're buying for. Booking concerts or music events. We're taking a detour. I
Okay.
am booking for I'm not doing that. Oh, it's making me do a dang. I was corporate performers, corporate entertainment. Oh, it's gonna make me put. Okay, this is a gag. There's no way Taylor Swift is in this. This is a scam. This is a
Got it.
scam. As soon as I clicked that, it was like, she's not in your fucking talent library website. You're putting in literally every artist known to man. Okay, which now says to me Alkaline Trio is bigger because they wound up on this scam website next to Taylor Swift in the listing of artists that you could buy on this fake scam website, and Real Big Fish didn't. So how do you think about that one, Slugger?
I still wonder charting wise, like, because it's how many other, if you go albums side by side, is that
Mark, Jesus. Sorry, this website is such a scam. I clicked over to hire professional business speakers for events, and I doubt that this website can get me Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, or Mark Cuban. But they can also get me Taylor Swift and Alkaline Trio, and like, come on.
Speaking of social security numbers, this website has just stolen yours. So
yeah, holy shit. What a bizarre thing. I doubt Ryan Reynolds is on there. Okay, I'm moving on. But I now use this as evidence that Alkaline Trio is bigger than Real Big Fish because they are on this fake website's bullshit.
I don't know.
Fine.
I don't know if I buy that. Just this thing that you found. So
sorry. Where were we? I got really sidetracked and held up by this website. Do you want us to go try to book a scam speaker and see what happens? Are we doing that? Should we go for the stars and just see if we get them?
Yeah, maybe more listeners. Back to all our bots that are.
We're going to start paying for listeners, and we're going to pay these people to pay for the thing. It's genius.
It's the complete opposite of content creation. So,
Randy, brass tacks, who wins this? Tell me right now.
I'm still leaning Real Big Fish just because of I think the bigger, slightly bigger name factor and popularity factor. That's what I think.
Okay, so what did you want to look up to get to get the answer? What were you curious about that was going to push you over the edge?
I was going to say albums that charted, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna guess that Real Big Fish had more albums that charted than
okay. Hang on. So there's 10 Alkaline Trio albums and there's 9 Real Big Fish albums.
Okay.
So Real Big Fish, to be fair, has not put out an album since 2018. Mm-hmm. But so that means that there was a little gotcha. But regardless, 10 versus 9 is still pretty good.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So let me bring up the Alkaline Trio discography. So the first 2 albums, the first album for Real Big Fish was 95. The first album for Alkaline Trio was 98. Neither charted.
Okay.
The second album for Real Big Fish was 96. The second for Alkaline Trio was 2000. Alkaline Trio didn't chart, Real Big Fish at 57.
Okay.
And I'm going to write this down so that I actually remember these things. Real Big Fish's third album charted at 67, and Alkaline Trio's third album charted at 199. So, you're doing good so far.
Sneak it in.
You're sneaking in. Real Big Fish's fourth album charted at 115. By the way, that's Cheer Up, my all-timer I keep talking about. But Alkaline Trio's fourth album charted at 20.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a Real Big Fish just plummeted and Alkaline Trio just skyrocketed.
Okay.
The fifth album, Real Big Fish's fifth album, is down to 155 on the charts, and Alkaline Trio's album is at 25.
Okay.
The sixth album, Real Big Fish charted. They're back up at 106, and Alkaline Trio's at 13.
This is the main?
Yes, this is main U.S. charts. Not alternative, not whatever. Yeah. This is the main charts. I left off at the 106 for Real Big Fish, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Real Big Fish's seventh album charted at 177, while Alkaline Trio's seventh album charted at 11.
I'm learning things here. I always knew they had good stuff. I didn't realize it was charting as well it was. So I might be flipped on this.
All good. Real Big Fish's next album, real skyrocket for them, charted at 91, which they were at 177 before. That's a great jump for them.
Yep.
Which ironically then I mentioned that I didn't like Agony and Irony, and I thought the addiction was not great. They kind of went on a bad run for Alkaline Trio. They fall out. They're down to 24 for this.
Okay.
But that's still pretty good, all things considered. And then moving to... Did I skip one? 1, 2, 3.
I mean, we can go through all of them. I think I've been more enlightened than I realized. There's more consistency from Alkaline Trio from a chart standpoint. I think that's sort of a no-brainer. I just assumed there was going to be I don't know why I thought not Everything Sucks, but Turn Your Radio Off is way better charting than that. So
sorry, buddy. I will hit the last album.
I'm not sorry.
The last comparison we can do, the last Real Big Fish album that we can compare in this run didn't chart, and Alkaline Trio fell to 68.
Yeah.
So
yeah. No, but there was what, 5 albums in there that were top 25, or if not 6.
Yeah.
So yeah. No, I think that's definitely Alkaline Trio. So
okay, cool.
That's why we do that, right?
Yeah, and that's good instincts on you, who had the thought we should look at that to solve this.
Yep.
So I know it didn't go the way you wanted, but good instincts.
Oh, it wasn't a wanted thing. I would just say I had a different perception that was remedied.
And then our next battle is our buy of Blink-182 versus the Offspring. Blink-182, I don't need to discuss this.
Yeah. Yep.
It's Blink-182. It's even if you only took a 6-year output and put it up against everything else that almost everyone else has done, is Blink-182.
Yep.
Very much so. So, but then that does put us into the fun finale of Alkaline Trio versus Blink-182, and if
like
nothing else,
Pearl Jam against Soundgarden.
If
the
nothing
drummer was
else,
in both.
I was just going to say, if nothing else, you have to give it to Blink-182, because when Blink-182 they took for the money to play for them, right? They're like, hey, we need a new. Who was he filling in for? I forget who did Matt Skiba go fill in for? Was it Hoppus? Or was it?
Yeah, because I think he.
Yeah. They were like, "Hey, Hobbs doesn't want to do
right?
Doesn't want to do
Blink-182. He was
182."
sick, wasn't he?
Yeah. Oh, was it? I thought he just wanted to be done for a while.
Oh, maybe it was that.
Whatever it was, they were like, "Hey, Mark Hoppus is stepping down. We still want to do Blink-182 stuff. Hey, Alkaline Trio, you're pretty good. Matt Skiba, stop doing Alkaline Trio and come be in Blink-182."
Okay.
Yeah. So I think that instantly, when the two bands in the final has one of the band members quit to be in the other band, I think that says something.
I think this is one of those where it was we had to maneuver through the quarters and the semis and labor through these long series, and then this is a sweep.
and even if we set the joke of that aside, the mainstream appeal, the album sales, the tours, there's no way Blink-182 doesn't win this. I love Alkaline Trio.
Someone that doesn't like pop punk or hasn't really ever heard pop punk, and they're like, "Who do you think the best pop punk band is all time?" There's a really good chance they'll say Blink-182. Yeah.
Yeah. There's no jokes. There's no discussions. It is what it is. Yep. It took a lot to get there for what was always probably going to be an instant win. So
good on the others for competing. So
yes,
it's
proud
way
of
to make
you.
the playoffs.
Great job, you.
All right. Now the fun one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I have had no fun so far. You're right. This has been a miserable experience. All right. Let's do my board games. You hit first, and I hit first. You go ahead and hit your 4.
All right. So I'm going to go with Scattergories, Yahtzee, Pop-O-Matic Trouble, and Trivial Pursuit.
Wow, you went. Wow. Okay. So, okay. You went more traditional than I thought you would for some reason.
Okay.
I will say that Pop-O-Matic Trouble and Scattergories are both of my honorable mentions. Because Pop-O-Matic Trouble was the board game when I was young, was maybe the one I started with that my mom and I would play together all the time. Scattergories was my dad's favorite game when I was growing up. So both of those were both ones that I played a lot and I loved, but just didn't make the cut.
Yep.
Yahtzee is our only buy. Yahtzee's a buy. Because that was the game I still would play with people now if given the opportunity. It was the game I played the most. My family and I, we all liked Yahtzee. It was never a discussion of, well, I like this or this. We could always play Yahtzee. So Yahtzee is a buy. Yahtzee gets the buy.
Okay. Good job, Yahtzee.
My 4, I had to go. I play a lot of board games with people, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And I tried not to go too avant-garde or nuts. I stayed.
Well, and that's why I stayed more traditional, because I.
But you would also. you told me to tick 2 traditional, and Yahtzee was going to make it no matter what.
Yep.
And if I had to pick a second traditional, Monopoly was always going to make it onto the list for me.
Okay.
Because Monopoly, I love Monopoly. There's jokes about how long it can take and this and that. Yeah, but there's a reason there's 90 billion spin-offs and it's the most popular this or that. Like Monopoly's Monopoly. Monopoly makes my list. I would play Monopoly right now. I don't know if I'd finish, but I'd play right now. Risk almost made it. Life almost made it. Stratego almost made it. There's a host of card games that could have made it, but we are going traditional only.
Right.
There's a host of old-timey games like Dominoes or Left, Center, Right, or things that I love that could have made it, but didn't. The other 2 on my list, there's one that I say more, but it's also the entry-level version of playing weird board games. It's the most popular non-traditional game in the history of non-traditional games. Catan, Settlers of Catan. Like, if you're going to get people into a game that's not a traditional kids game, you're playing Catan, and that's how you're testing the waters with somebody at this point. There's a reason it is sold, like, how much is Catan sold? It is, my God.
Yes.
It is.
The most popular, yeah.
Since in the last 28 years, more than 40 million copies have been sold, and that's as of 2023. Like, it is the game that if you're going to be like, come on, let's try something that's not Monopoly. It's your just a taste to see if you want to get hooked, you know?
Yep.
And that's why it makes the list for me. Also, it's just a fucking great time. The game that I know will not advance based on our conversations, but if I didn't rank it in my 4, I would be lying to myself as what are my 4 favorite board games, as I would be doing a disservice, is a game called Parks. And it is a game that anytime I've ever introduced it to people, they go, I need to buy a copy of that. And they do. I found out about it from our mutual friends, Megan and Alex. They owned it first, and they had me play, and I bought a copy. My friend Kyle, who's an editor at the place that you and I both worked, bought a copy. Jocelyn, who does the job that you do, owns a copy. And like, it is this thing that as people have played it, I have seen it spread like one of those virus maps in the movies of the contagion taking over the U.S. That if you play this, you're like, fuck me, that was a good time. Because it's easy to learn and it's quick. I feel like people know all the ones we've talked about except for this. Do I need to explain what Catan is to people, or do I only need to explain what Parks is?
You're not going to be happy with me. I've never played Catan before.
No shit. No, that's not happy. I'm just surprised.
Okay.
I'm just surprised. But you recognize what I'm saying about how popular the
yeah. No, I mean, I looked up a couple things while I was trying to get ideas, and obviously that popped up as number 1 across the board. And it's within the culture. Everyone knows it, but I haven't played it.
Okay, so do you want me to detail both quickly? Since I feel like categories, Trouble, Trivial Pursuit, and Monopoly, and Yahtzee are all pretty known, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So Catan is great, and when I say it's the intro to more complicated gaming, it's because it's one of those games where you're managing, right? But it's the easy version of, you have some resources. You have to make deals with people. You can double-cross people. But it's all one of those entry-level versions of that. You're not having a piece of paper like, well, I made this, and I got to do this, and I got to figure out this. You can keep it all up here. But also, I have had more anger leveled at me. I have Megan, our friend Megan, of Megan and Alex, who I mentioned, who is a listener. So when she hears this, she'll know. I have her still bringing up times where I essentially betrayed her trust in this game that are from like 3 years ago.
Nice.
Where she's just like, well, I needed wheat, didn't I? Because you're trying to gather resources. And I'm like, there's deals of like, well, I have this, and I gather this, and you gather this. If I roll this, I'll make a deal with you that you give me this and that. And it's like, sure. And the time came, and I was like, I don't think I can. And she's like, what the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck? And it's like,
what do you mean you can't?
Yeah, it's like, no, we said we were going to do this. I was like, I think the deal was, if you give me this wheat, and all this, I won't attack, or I won't do something near your town, because there's no attacking. It's a very peaceful game. It's all about land and management and gathering and expanding. There's no war in Catan. but I might have built up against her border and made some decisions she wasn't happy with that we had agreed wouldn't happen. But for the sake of my land, for the sake of Barcodia, I had to encroach on her territory.
Oh my.
And she wasn't happy about it. Randy, you would enjoy the hell out of this.
Yeah, it sounds like I gotta you know what it is? It's interesting. My sister-in-law and her boyfriend are huge into like board games and all sorts of other stuff. And anytime they come over to our house, like on a weekend just to get together or family get-togethers, or whatever, they usually bring one, and it's a new one every time. And I wonder if I bet they have Catan. We'll have to.
I wonder if they don't bring it out because to them it is the older game now that they don't play as much, because it's older hat. It's the other game I want to talk about that I give credit to Megan and Alex, who they got me. Some of my old part of the thing I miss most about living in Connecticut is my board game family, because there were a group of people I just rotated games with, and I played so many more than I do now, and I miss that era of my life. But Parks, it says something that my two favorite games that I'm mentioning here are not. There's so many games where you're fighting people and war and this and that. These are just pleasant games about land ownership and visiting national parks. So Parks is you're visiting national parks and you're collecting cards and you're gathering resources to visit and see more parks. And every card that you're trying to collect is a genuine national park. And you have two little hikers moving across a trail, and you're trying to gather the most amount of resources to help these parks go. And it's and there's no screwing over except for the fact that, like, if you're on a resource space someone else can't be, and you're kind of trying to beat people to it. So like it's like, I needed water. Well, sorry, I need water more. So that type of thing. And it's not visceral. Like Catan can be visceral. And I can't not include it. I know it won't win. I know that. But I can't not include it because I'd be doing a disservice to how good I know it is.
It was our selections, so that is yours for sure.
So anyway, thank you for indulging me here on this one.
Of course. Yeah, but while you're setting up the generator or whatever too, that was originally when we had talked about all-encompassing things. Cards Against Humanity was going to be my number one because I'm such a fan of that game. But we eliminated all card games, essentially, or games that involved cards. But I also had chess on mine as my alternate, so which is as far back as it goes. But I love chess.
I love chess. I love Othello. I love so many games.
Same kind of idea. It's still strategy based, but just in a different mindset.
I used to love Cards Against Humanity. I have the bigger, blacker box. I have every expansion.
Where's this going?
Something happened where I never want to see that game again. And it's because I felt like it became the card game you were forced to play at someone's house.
Okay.
It stopped being fun because it would be, we're having a good time. And it would be, at first it was, Cards Against Humanity. Then it was, Christ, Cards Against Humanity again. I was just going to say, and then it never ended. You're just stuck. It's like 5 hours. I'm tired of this shit.
Okay. Yeah. So there is an offshoot of this game called Versus, which is the same idea as Card Against Humanity for it's, could be a lewd suggesting thing, but all your cards that you're able to play off it are song titles.
Oh, that sounds fun.
So it's kind of a fun little and I think whoever wins gets a guitar pick. Like that's the little play piece, and whoever gets 5 picks wins. So it's not that long. Like it's usually like a half-hour-ish game. So we've been playing that a lot more lately than versus Cards Against Humanity, more because we involved my son, and Cards Against Humanity is not the greatest thing for a 12-year-old.
I got to double check. I think they're all kid-friendly. But if you've never played Exploding Kittens, that's the most adult thing about it. That's my favorite card game on the planet. Exploding Kittens is amazing. Have you played?
Different versions of it too. The burrito one.
Oh my God. I love it. I love Exploding Kittens. It's great. If you're going into more, I'm looking at my card and game shelf behind me right now. If you're going into more adult stuff, have you ever seen the cartoon on Instagram, Cyanide and Happiness? The little stick figures who kind of do inappropriate cartoons. They have 2 card games I'm aware of. One is called Joking Hazard, and one is that's basically your Cards Against Humanity variant, where it's you draw a card, one person plays a middle and one person plays a punchline, and you're making a 3-comic strip.
Oh, okay.
3-panel comic strip, and you're all kind of voting on who made the funniest punchline to the comic strip.
That's cool.
And that was really fun. I really like that one, and the visuals help it a lot. It's also inappropriate in that same regard. But
What's that one called? That's
Joking Hazard.
okay.
I'll send you a link. And
Yeah.
then my other one that I love from those same people, but is you have to have at least a third person, and it can be so much, but God, it's so much fun. Did you watch The Good Place?
Yeah.
You know the trolley problem?
Yeah.
They made a board game, a card game of the trolley problem.
Oh, wow.
With just the most insane shit you could imagine. And so it's designed where you have good cards, bad cards, and modifiers. And so you draw one from the deck, right? And then you have the situation. And then you're playing a good card for yourself and a modifier on the other person's track. So that you are saying why you're trying to get the judge for that round to run over the other person's track. But back to this. We have our bracket.
Okay.
Our first go round is Pop-O-Matic Trouble versus Monopoly. Trouble is easier to play, quicker to play, but Monopoly is legendary. It's not as cut and dry as I would say, but I don't know. One is very, very kid-friendly, and one isn't, even though a lot of kids play it. A lot of kids play Monopoly, but it's really more of an adult thing. But Pop-O-Matic Trouble is quick and easy. Also, Pop-O-Matics.
That's I think the part of it that I enjoyed the most when we pulled it back out when I started playing board games with my son. It was just like, oh, this is actually like just fun and
quick and
therapeutic
easy
to just do it. But I think based on the offshoots, based on the fact that still pretty much anybody can play it because there's enough varieties of Monopoly that kids can even understand and get in. I think I don't like playing Monopoly because my son is really good at it, and he every time we play, he's the one that will just gather however it takes to get 3 of the same color and then just make that a hellscape that you hold your breath every time you go around that part of the but it is an enjoyable game to play. There's good strategy involved and a variety of strategies involved. So it's where Pop-O-Matic Trouble really is you do one thing.
It is a great turn your brain off game. It is great to just play a quick game and call it a day.
Maybe that's I think Monopoly has the more varied ways to attempt to build what you're doing and succeed. So I think that's kind of the fun part about it is there's not just one way to play it. I think Monopoly wins in that regard, even though Pop-O-Matic Trouble is a lot of fun.
Yeah, you don't get the drama in Pop-O-Matic Trouble, the anger. Really, I think
another 6, damn it.
I think that's actually what might be driving most of my favorite board game choices is how angry do I get during the game? Because even with Yahtzee, there is some rage involved with Yahtzee, depending on the situation.
Yeah.
But we'll go Monopoly. And now what I love about how this generated the next one is it's Parks, which is I would probably lose category, versus the game of yours I like the least that I avoid like the plague, which is Trivial Pursuit.
Okay.
I get the appeal of Trivial Pursuit. It's fine, but I have never been a Trivial Pursuit person. The game just is like watching paint dry to me sometimes.
Really?
But and even when if it's a category, I know they have the specialized versions. Like I remember I had an SNL Trivial Pursuit that I thought this is going to be so fun, and I was just like, bash me that. Actually, the only thing that remained of that. Hang on. These came out around SNL 25, is this game. The game has been lost to time. I have no idea where the cards are, the board is. I don't know what happened. I don't know where the wedge pieces are. But if you're watching the video version, I have got the pieces from SNL Trivial Pursuit, which is Chris Farley as Down by the River guy. What's his name?
Matt Foley.
The Land Shark, the Ladies' Man, Beldar Conehead, Will Ferrell's cheerleader, John Belushi's samurai, and because this is 99 was that era of SNL 25. Aside from the cheerleader, you also had Mary Catherine Gallagher and Mango. I have a little tiny Mango in my room at all times. How do you feel about that?
Such as Mango.
That's the most Trivial Pursuit has ever given. But tell me why you love Trivial Pursuit. How did this? I'm shocked to see it make your list. Explain it. Explain yourself.
Much like with categories, I think later, this requires you to have more of an all-encompassing knowledge of things. I don't love playing games where if you're really good at one thing, you could be really, I don't know, like it's I like that you have to have a broad knowledge to succeed in this game. And it's still a little bit of luck of the draw because it's sometimes if you land on the science pie, um, that could be, what is photosynthesis, or it could be, what is the organism that was found in 1853 that did, like, it just, there is varying levels of things that it's about a matter of chance, which you said sometimes you get frustrated. And I think that's a point where you're just like, how on earth did you get Taylor Swift for the pink answer? And I got, the Academy Award winner from 1951. But
That's fair.
I really enjoy and I think I like the team element of it. So you can kind of utilize, always played a lot of like trivia, like gone to like bars or restaurants or whatever and done a lot of trivia. And it's always been with teams. And I like that aspect of you use the collective knowledge of everybody to work together. And you use it a lot, obviously, in Trivial Pursuit. So nature of the
That's
game.
fair. And listen, I'm not going to fight it because I know both sales and knowledge of this. I said it up front. Parks was always going to be I got to put it in to talk about it.
Yeah.
And I know it's going to lose, and let's just move on from it. I will give it to you. We're moving on. I know the deal. I don't like Trivial Pursuit. And that's I'm glad you
Fair.
do, and we'll move on. However, I am going to fight you tooth and nail on Catan versus categories because I loved categories growing up, but I think Catan just became a cultural force, a revolution.
This is a good matchup.
It's something that does take brain power, does take, it's not just a no skill set game, and neither is categories. Categories is fun and creative, and you have to be able to figure things out and recall. And
categories is a lot more instant gratification. So I think this is kind of our similar Pop-O-Matic Trouble versus Monopoly argument, right? Like, I mean, I think that it's not you can turn your brain off for categories, but it's in bursts, right? It's in that little minute as the timer turns over. Whereas Catan, from what it sounds like, again, I haven't played it, there's strategy involved. You're setting things up for things down the line. You're getting things in place. And so and I don't think the argument of it's the best selling game since, like you said, since the turn of the millennia.
Right.
I'm not going to really argue with that in regards. I think it's a really fun matchup because I think it's two very good games or great games. And so, but I will give it to you based on just all the knowledge that I have of Catan, which is having not played it and I still have that knowledge, I think speaks to it.
Okay. I'm glad. I thought I was going to have to go deeper in, but I was like, I don't know how I'm going to frame. It's a little bit of an abstract.
This has been an interesting exercise as we've gone through all the parameters of the matchups because we're kind of getting baselines on how we're deciding things, and that gives us something to go off of, which is nice to have.
I think we're doing the right mix of personal feeling, but also actual real world.
Otherwise, we'll just argue until we're blue in the face, and this will be a 10-hour podcast.
The real world has to filter in. The real world has to help us choose when it's just, no, I like this. Well, I like this. Well, fuck you.
Exactly. Good. We're in an impasse. All 8 teams win. Great.
However, that being said, Monopoly versus Trivial Pursuit. I like Monopoly. I don't like Trivial Pursuit. Fuck you. So, I mean, what do you choose? Because
I'll argue that we can stick with the strategy on it. So, I definitely enjoy playing Trivial Pursuit more than I play Monopoly, but if we are looking for the totality of a board game with all of the characteristics that we're trying to work with, there is more strategy. There's some strategy in Trivial Pursuit because you have to go certain ways based on what colors and what answers, what categories you're going to try and pick. But I think Monopoly has a better standing. It can be an investment based on more people can be invested in Monopoly than Trivial Pursuit because you're usually doing teams, right? So.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Although I guess it's still multiplayer. You can have up to 4 teams in Trivial Pursuit. So it's 6 one, half a dozen the other. But I'll go with the strategy aspect to bump Monopoly up over.
Cool. Works for me. And now this one is tough for me because my gut reaction is Yahtzee beats Catan, and I love Yahtzee. It's one of my favorite games of all time. But I guess I just want to give Catan as maybe a better game, because it's a game, But Yahtzee is just so fucking addictive, and I can play it and sit down and
Its
do it
brilliance is
anytime.
in its simplicity. I think that's what
And
it
it's
is.
still
So,
frustrating. It still
yeah.
gets you. You're like, for fuck's sake. And also, maybe it's because I'm a degenerate gambler, and it's all the fun of gambling without the money. We got to start getting in on that.
And there is some. I mean, the thing about Yahtzee is it's very instant gratification, but there's still strategy involved, like you said, and there's frustration.
Is there
and
strategy involved in Yahtzee though? Is risk involved? I don't know if there's strategy.
Well,
it's a roll. It's a random roll of the dice.
Strategy based on the rolls. But yeah, like you're after your first roll, right? Like I have 2 6s, 2 5s, and a 3.
The strategy
like,
is
what do I move
risk.
aside? Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I got you. I got you. Okay. The
So,
strategy is that you're going to literally do anything as opposed to sit and call it a day. That you will take those risks.
Right. But you're still, you're eliminating some part of the risk because now you're rolling 3 dice instead of 5.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. You're right. Well, you're right. You're right, Lorraine. Well, you're right. What's the scene? Oh, you're right, Lorraine. You're right.
I'm blanking.
It's when he's after he's got the peanut brittle, and then he's sitting at the table, Back to the Future.
Right.
That my friend Jared and I, that's one of those random quotes that shouldn't be a famous quote that we always say to each other.
And I would say it's not.
No, it's in no way a quote.
With you,
but the way that he says it that is always stuck in our brain when one of us wins an argument or something. Well, you're right, Lorraine. You're right. Just sound.
When you're right. You're right, and you're always right.
So downtrodden.
That's Spaceballs.
Maybe. Oh, what did we didn't talk about that. What do you think about the announcement of Spaceballs 2 officially? Or do you want to finish this, then finish up with that?
we can end with that, yeah. So, all right.
So Monopoly.
Are we giving Yahtzee the?
Easily.
Yeah, okay.
It hurts, but I feel like this is tough, right? Monopoly or Yahtzee? I say society would say Monopoly, and our personal biases would say Yahtzee.
I'm still team Yahtzee on this one, but it's
all right.
I didn't love Monopoly to begin with, so it's managed to keep going through against me.
So our personal biases will officially inform, and let's say Yahtzee is the winner of this board game tournament. And if you sit here listening, which based on the fact that we haven't recorded in a month,
did the buys win everyone?
Oh my God. I think they did. The buys won everyone. Fuck. What a shit tournament. This is some terrible tournament.
That's why the regular season matters.
Oh my God. My goodness. All right. Well, I feel like a failure. No, these are good. And now we know that The Sopranos, Blink-182, and Yahtzee go into the Hall of Fame of most important things that exist in life.
What a Saturday night that sounds like. So.
Oh, I mean, listen to a little Blink-182, watch some Sopranos, and play Yahtzee. I'm in. What a great night. Let's hang out.
Great.
I would say we were going to wrap this up, but we just promised a quick little bonus. What do you think of the Spaceballs 2 announcement?
I'm interested and intrigued. I will be hesitant. Kiki Palmer can be hit or miss with me, so I will be curious about that. Other than that, I'm all in.
I just want them. If they're going to do it, let's do it, because if you want Mel Brooks' yogurt, you better shoot it soon.
Yeah.
If they have the same development cycle to make it that they had to get to this announcement of 20 plus years,
CGI is going to help. So, but
no, there's a reason getting him out there to make the announcement was such a ploy, because he's not directing, he's not writing, he's barely acting, he's barely involved. Glad that he's going to give his support and blessing, but I also feel like they're trying to trick people into thinking this is a Mel Brooks movie when it's not going to be.
My other hesitance, although he was involved in that one, is that the History of the World Hulu series was hit or miss.
Not good. They tried that Spaceballs cartoon a few years ago, which was not good. So, I'm not super optimistic, but if you get the right creative team who can filter it properly, you can see what happens. There's our bonus content for the day. And I think other than that, this wraps it up, right?
Indeed, yeah.
All right, it was fun to get back at it. So listen, for good or for ill, I have almost no work in July, which means I will be free to record, as opposed to, and what's even better about that is I will have to adapt to your busy schedule, which you can look at two ways, right? Oh, good, Mike can make it work. Or, oh, crap, Mike can't dodge me. Oh, Mike, I can only record from the hours of 2 a.m. to 4 a.m.
It's great. I'm aware.
Yeah, no, I'm in. Let's go. So, take that. But with that, we'll
Well,
wrap it up and say thank you. If you are listening, if you've come back after yet another sabbatical and you like this still, thank you for taking the time. Mike Barcode on social media, MikeBarcode. Like, subscribe, 5 stars, positive reviews, all the normal stuff. With that, I turn it over, Randy, to get us the hell out of here.
on that note, goodbye, everybody.